What this is an attack on honest, authentic education, particularly about history and teaching the truth about our history.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So, Adam, we talked about the Alabama Education Association's report on the legislative session in the first half of the program, and that wasn't the only education-related topic that we had on slate to talk about today. There was also the Zinn Education Project had an event or some sort of advocacy thing going on last week. What were they doing, and you know, how involved were, for example, the forces of Satan, etc.?
So yeah, let me tell you about the Day of Action, the National Teach Truth Day of Action, which is actually happening today, June 8th. So Zinn Education Project is helping to organize this along with 65 different organizations. That includes labor as well. And so for the past 3 summers, educators, students, parents, and allies have joined across the country to speak out against politicians attempting to restrict the freedoms of educators and students. There were over 4,000 instances of book bans in the first half of this school year alone, according to PEN America's April 2024 report, Banned in the USA, narrating the crisis. 11 individuals are driving the overwhelming majority of book challenges, according to a Washington Post analysis. The majority of targeted books are by authors of color, indigenous, or LGBTQ+ authors. So this year, from Seattle, Washington to Miami, Florida, and many towns and cities in between, educators will host more than 170 grassroots events on Saturday, June 8th, and throughout the month. The goal is to raise awareness about how anti-history education laws and book bans and their chilling effect threaten any chance of an informed and engaged democracy. And so Zinn Education Project had a press call a few days ago with various folks involved in the effort. And a couple I wanted to mention. Jesse Hagopian, who is a editor of Rethinking Schools, longtime teacher activist, he said, quote, "Astoundingly, today, almost half of all children in the public schools are in a jurisdiction that has passed a law or policy that bans honest education about race, about gender, about sexuality. This 4th annual Day of Action is a grassroots effort to fight these laws and advocate for honest education that empowers students to create a more just society." Also, the National Education Association Center for Racial and Social Justice said, "It's an honor to join you and to speak on behalf of the National Education Association's 3 million members. We are the nation's educators, and our members share one important goal: ensuring every student, Black, white, brown, indigenous, Asian American, students from underserved neighborhoods, LGBTQ+ students who are differently abled, all have the joy, justice, and excellence that they need and that they deserve." So NEA is joining in, like I said, about 65 different organizations, various social justice groups, racial justice groups, and education groups, all working together on this event. I think it's really important because we have seen these efforts spread throughout the country, including right here in Alabama, where a law was passed this year which banned DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, along with quote-unquote divisive concepts. And so what this is an attack on honest, authentic education, particularly about history and teaching the truth about our history. And, you know, I think that's interesting. We had this conversation this morning about the Battle of Blair Mountain and how much of our labor history and really working class history more broadly has been covered up and hidden from so many of us, and we have to reclaim that. And this is, you know, a terrain of struggle we've got right now where legislatures throughout the country are making it more difficult to teach the truth about working class history. And something that I wanted to mention here, there's an author of many children's books, Nikki Grimes, And she also added about self-censorship or soft censorship. Soft censorship is about teachers being so afraid of censure that they are now removing books from shelves without being asked to, not purchasing books at all for fear of censure, and in some cases completely emptying their classroom shelves to avoid possible legal entanglements or threats to their livelihoods. Soft censorship is a killer. In some ways, it's harder to fight than censorship from without. So I think that's a really important point to make, that part of the intent of this legislation is to discourage folks, right? It's to intimidate folks. It's to get folks to go ahead and censor themselves before the state has to intervene, right? Because teachers are going to be fearful that they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to lose their livelihood, lose their teaching certificate if they teach the truth about American history. They teach the truth about Alabama history. They teach the truth about our long history of white supremacy and genocide and war and imperialism. You know, some folks don't want us to know the truth. And so I really appreciate Zinn Education Project for putting this day of action on. Me personally, reading history in particular really opened my eyes as a teenager. It really shook me loose from the way I was raised. I mean, I was raised, to be not just conservative, but bigoted. And it was history that helped open my eyes, just learning the truth about the world and America's place in the world. And that really helped me to appreciate new ways of thinking and explore new ways of thinking and be intellectually curious. And so I've experienced firsthand the power of history and how powerful it can be when you really learn about your own heritage and you learn about what has been taught to you that hasn't been true, and kind of unlearning some propaganda. All of that is very, very powerful, and that sort of critical thinking is discouraged by some folks on the far right. And it's really unfortunate, and it's especially unfortunate for students of color because it's often their curriculum and their history that's being targeted first and foremost. And that's just, it's really a shame in 2024. But yeah, I wanted to lift up that event. Shout out to all the folks participating. I heard there's one in Montgomery. I know there's some throughout the South. So if you are participating and you want to hit us up, let us know how it went. We'd love to hear more about it. But yeah, I think it's an important issue because authentic history is under attack. Authentic history is really powerful, and that's why it's under attack. And it's up to all of us to defend teaching the truth, whether you're in education or not. And those of you who are in education, I think you have to be engaged in this and you have to be aware of this because you have a responsibility to do right by those kids. And that includes teaching the truth, whether that's uncomfortable or politically incorrect or whatever the situation may be. And so educators have to organize to defend their own curriculum.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Whitney, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think you put it beautifully, Adam. And I was sort of thinking when he was talking about Blair Mountain, how I also think it's very intentional that they erased sort of like the multiracial organizing that was happening. And that is historically how like really important movements have happened when like different groups come together. It isn't just, purely one group uplifting themselves. It's we all have to do this together. And I think that history especially gets erased, especially with the way like Alabama teaches like civil rights history and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true because like if there's any takeaway from American history, if you look at it, for me, the biggest takeaway is that every inch of progress we've ever had, we've had to fight for. It's taken people power, diverse people power, to your point. People coming together against their differences, uniting around their common interests, and building a movement big enough and strong enough to bend politics in our direction and to bend society in our direction and tilt the balance of power a little bit better towards us. And that's really the long arc of American history, is that push and pull between, you know, the forces of humanity and the forces of greed. And it's very troubling to me that there's so many young people today who, and it's not just today, I think in some cases maybe it was worse previously, but so many young people, you know, leave American history classes without that basic concept, right? That active citizenship is what has brought us everything that we have. The decline of it is the source of the crises we face, right? And so coming together, building people power, that's how we've made progress in this country. That's the big lesson in American history. And for obvious reasons, that is a scary lesson for some people to be taught these days.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, the powers that be, those who benefit from this system as it is, don't want us to know that heritage. They don't want us to know that our ancestors came together across differences that were probably seemed a lot bigger than the differences we have today. They don't want us to think about how our ancestors fought back in situations that were tougher than we have today. And that workers have organized under conditions far more grueling than we experience now, and fought back against anti-union opposition that was far more violent than we have today, right? Like, we have really brave, courageous heroes throughout our movement of just, these are everyday people, right? Though they're not heroes from on above. These are just everyday people who are willing to sacrifice because they knew it was the only way to make their lives and their communities better. And so I don't see how you study history without understanding that. But I understand why the ruling class doesn't want us to do that, because it threatens their interest when everyday people see our power that we have.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.